And we're live. Welcome to another episode of Codurance Fireside Chats. I am here with Mash and Sandro, co-founders of Codurance. I'm Jose. I'm the managing director. And if you're new to this Fireside Chats, this is just we used to have these conversations after hours at work, and then at some point we decided, well, why don't we broaden up the circle, no, and started recording them, and now we do them live. So if you want to participate in the conversation, go ahead and jump in the chat on YouTube. If you like what you're seeing, subscribe, hit the notification button, and you will know when we go live and you can participate. Today's topic is about boot camps. Yeah. So how useful are tech boot camps, especially in today's economy market, if you want to call it something. And this is something that we touched tangentially a couple of times already in some of the other episodes, and we thought it was a good idea to dedicate a bit of time to it, especially triggered by a tweet by Pere from the Software Crafters Mallorca group. So shout out to him, who was like, "Well, what are your thoughts on this?" Right? Because lately there's been a boom, yeah. I would say the last 5 years, it's been proliferating. Lots of businesses, no, have created these schools where you can go and study for a couple of months and come out ready to join the workforce, so to speak. That's kind of like the promise that many of these places do. And is it a good thing? Is it a bad thing? So let's see. No, let's get the ball rolling, I guess. No, with what are some of the experiences that you guys have had with this? Like, have you met some of the people coming out of those boot camps? Yes, no, and what can you say about either the quality or what these programs are about?
I can start. Um, it's I yeah, when we first started Codurance, the whole idea of apprenticeships has always been part of us from day one. And I remember my first apprentice came from a boot camp, and I remember at the time it
This
took
is
me
10
about
years ago, no?
this
10.
was 9 years ago.
Yeah.
It took me about 2 years to get them up to speed, where I felt that they were, after the boot camp, working alongside me on where I was mentoring them on projects and uh, even kind of training and those kind of things. I felt that they were ready. But this person had come into the boot camp from a completely non-technical profession before, and at that time, I think was that
Wasn't he a social worker or a nurse or something, or work
yeah,
for charity or something like that?
something like that, yeah. But very kind of completely outside the tech arena, basically. And then it took a long time, and but they once they got to the point a couple of years later, they were very good, uh, and I think it would have been even more difficult for them if they come without a boot camp. Well, they wouldn't have even got the job in the first place, right? And at that time, our idea was that actually they come out a bit too junior for what we need. We are a software consultancy. We need people to kind of be on client projects as part of a team, but they need to perform at the very least mid to senior level of most of the clients people, right? So the bar is quite high for us anyway. But since then, we've had a mixture. We've had people who came in and they moved very fast, and there was not even a um, a problem. And funnily enough, the Sandro also had, and I'll let Sandro talk about the other apprentice who came out as a university graduate. So it was quite a good comparison in some ways. he moved very fast. But and then we thought, okay, maybe it's because of university. But I personally don't think so. I think since then we've had people from the boot camps who moved as fast. Some move don't, and we've had people graduates who moved very slow, like in terms of progression within the company, right? We now have a much more formalized apprenticeship program, and we take people. Uh, Usually, we require 1 to 2 years of experience, but sometimes we take people from boot camps or universities when they exhibit a lot of potential, right? So, to answer your question, I think both routes bring out people. For a consultancy company, they're not ready. They require a lot more polish, the level that they come at. There are rare occasions where they are actually at a good level, and they can be, come through our own apprenticeship program then and move fairly quickly. But both routes are as valid, the way I see it. It's more up on the individual and kind of their past experiences, but also their aptitude and also their attitude to learning that actually makes the difference. But as a springboard for a tech career, I think it's a very good option. In fact, I would hazard to say that if you just include it from a skills perspective, then it's a better option and cheaper, more cost-effective option than a university would ever be, especially what they teach at uni.
Yeah, so I see boot camps with very good eyes in general, right? So, but of course that as everything, that's the same for universities or types of companies and so on and so forth. We need to look at those things into a wider range of perspectives, let's say, to have a more in-depth opinion. So, but in general, if I had to summarize, I think that boot camps are a good thing. And we probably need even more of them that provide with better quality as well. You probably can get to that discussion maybe later on in this episode of like what those boot camps should actually teach, and is even possible to teach in such a short period of time. So for me, there are one perspective that I like to take is our industry needs more people. So, and the entry barrier. So, on one hand, you can say that the entry barrier is very low because, like, if you are able to, if you can afford a laptop and an internet connection, um, you should be able to learn a lot of the things that we do, at least a big range of the things that we do, almost by your own, like online and stuff, right? So the boot camps is a way to accelerate that. So mainly for people changing careers, is a way for them in a very short period of time get enough skills with a short investment. Although we can talk about prices as well, because some of them are reasonably expensive, but we can talk about the return on investment as well. But in general, people changing careers in a short amount of time get the very basic foundation to get a job as a entry-level developer. I think that that's a good thing. It helps us to bring more people to our industry and get them started. The university route for those people would be a no go. Like if you are already changing careers, you are a bit further away in your life, stopping for 4 years to study computer science or something in that is a huge investment, right? So that would be prohibitive to a lot of people. So on that side, for example, from that perspective, I think boot camps play a great. They are a very good thing, very positive thing in our industry. But then, of course, there is a return on investment as well. As I said, like they are quite intense. They tend to be 3 or months or 4 months or whatever. Some of them in the UK, they cost a lot of money, in a few thousands of pounds, right? So someone will need to be full time for a few months without earning any money and pay a significant amount. However, the average job as a junior developer is also quite well paid. So if they are able to quickly after the boot camp be able to get an entry level position, they might have a good return on investment, potentially better than the university route on a financial side. an acceleration of their entry to our industry. But then I'll not take a lot of space because I have a lot of opinions in this topic. But then we can also discuss like after the bootcamp, so what they learn in there and what is their suitability. So how suitable they are for all the different types of roles and companies out there. So that's a separate discussion as well. But that's my summary to get started this conversation. Jose, well, how do you look at it?
So, how do I look at it? So, this is the thing. I feel like they are focusing on practical things, right? So they're trying to get people to be able to do stuff as soon as possible so that they can be hired to do that stuff. Where I think boot camps lag is in teaching good foundation, especially in some cases around design and these kinds of things, right? So, and that takes time. It's not something that is immediate or anything like that, but I think they could do a better job at it. That's no. Because someone was asking the question, no, if you were going back, what would you tell yourself? No, don't go to university, do a boot camp. I don't think I would tell myself that, because there were certain things that I learned at university, like how to reason problems and do problem solving and so on, that I don't think they teach you in a boot camp. Yeah, they can teach you the tools, but the reality is I also feel like they're necessary, right? Because the rate or the speed at which universities adapt to what is needed is a lot slower, yeah, than what a 3 month training bootcamp can do, right? Like if the next 3 months they want to teach something else, it's relatively easy for them to change that. They don't have to wait 4 years to kind of see the results, no, of the outcomes and things. So I think at the rate in which the industry changes, bootcamps are a good thing because they allow people to adapt. But if you're talking long term as an individual, there are certain things that you will need if you want to be successful in the field that I don't think you will learn in a bootcamp. You either learn them already somewhere else, like you did another degree, or you study something else, and that now you're switching. So those skills are transferable, and in that case, that's great. But if you are just starting, you didn't do anything before, I think they will still not prepare you well enough to be successful in this. Like it would take a lot more attitude and grit, no, and passion for you to get there, right? Because as a guideline on what you need to learn, because this is the thing, like university also doesn't teach you everything that you need to know, but they try to give you enough of each concept, no, so that later on you could continue developing, no, or continue expanding on it. As a guide, I don't think they fulfill their function that well. Yeah.
But this is an interesting topic, and I can see from our chats that there is a lot of people reacting to some of the things that we are saying. So I will go back to some of the questions related to that. So, for example, Herman was asking this question, right? So if you travel to the past, what would you say to your former self? Hey, don't go to university, just take this bootcamp course. I think that Emmanuel also said like that. I mentioned that they could learn in what we do in a short time. What do I mean by what we do? And also I think that Marina also said that I think university can offer much more than professional training in terms of development of a person, learning, etc. But it also depends on the person. So there is a lot of people also mentioning that. So let me try to clarify also a few things, given what you said, Jose, and people on the chat. Remember here that we are talking about using bootcamps as an entry point to our industry, right? Let's focus. That's the role, the problem that they try to solve. They try to take people that are not coming from the traditional routes, the university route, let's call that, and people that would like to work in IT, maybe as a software engineer or maybe some of the related areas, right? mostly software engineers, most of the boot camps, they tend to be focused on programming and things like that. So, but let's remember, this is the entry level, right? So they go through a 3-4 months boot camp to get the bare minimum. So they learn how to do something in Python, in Ruby, or in Java, or they learn GitHub and or Git and something like that. But by no means, like I'm no saying that oh, in 3 months' time now they are a fully fledged software engineer, because not even universities in 4 years can do that, right? But is this at least this a good start of their journey, so that instead of spending the other 3.5 years at university, they could start looking for an entry level job, as I mentioned, and complement the knowledge gap that they still have, and that will be for the rest of their life, with other additional trainings, other additional learning, part of it at work, part of it still learning as we do today. I think that this is what I meant, is as an entry level with a small investment, and just the beginning of that journey that will continue throughout their career.
But the entry level thing, but this is not a problem. Like, okay, if you look at it like from the perspective of organizations that are ultimately hiring the people that come out of this, they don't. The problem is not, oh, we need more people in no, the problem is there are not enough. Yeah, the ones that are there that could fit, I cannot pay. Yeah, therefore I need to find a solution for that. So to some extent, maybe it's a mismatch in expectations. Yeah, but and this happened a lot. If you look back a couple of years, like you were out of a boot camp and you will find a job immediately. At this point, there are plenty of people that went through boot camps and it's been months and they still haven't gotten a job. Yeah, because the industry learned that the mismatching expectations was there. Like, you couldn't put someone through an entry level into the industry through 3 months of training, especially that kind of training only focused on the technology, MongoDB, React, and yeah, that's not gonna get you someone that you can hire and it's going to write good quality code and going to solve all your
But
problems, right?
see,
So this is the
but it depends on who
mismatch.
is hiring, right? But I think it depends on who is hiring as well, because this is another aspect, another perspective that I would say is like, for example, what kind of company you are and what is your hiring strategy and stuff. If you are a company that needs to get a lot of value, for example, you are very short for example, if you hire an engineer, you can afford to pay a much higher price because you have an immediate need, very complicated problems that you need to solve immediately. Of course, you need someone with experience. Or in our case, for example, we very rarely, almost never hire from a boot camp now, because we know that the kind of work that we do, those people are way too far from what we need them to do. So
But
Out of
we
let me
we
qualify
also
that.
very rarely hire from a uni as well, by the way.
exactly.
Let's just go back to one thing. Boot camp is about the programming skill. Yeah, it's not about being a good software developer. They're trying to they do try to put you into a team and all those kind of things. If I just look at the things that the boot camp is teaching, I've done 2 degrees, both in computer science, and my son is currently doing a computer science degree, right? I would say, and I have seen people and I've seen what they teach in the boot camps and everything else. I would say just the thing that they teach, they do a better job in 3 months that I did with a bachelor's and a master's on what was taught to me, just though that thing, right? The other thing I would say about a university is that it's important to understand at what age people come into. You know that question, like, would I tell my young self, should I go to university? I would tell my 18-year-old self to go to university because I was not ready to work. The university, so let's take the skill aside. University doesn't just teach you, it actually doesn't really teach you programming. Computer science degrees in the UK, at least, teach you a bit of programming, but they don't teach you software development. They teach you a lot of theory, which could be good or bad and so on, but they are extremely disorganized. And frankly, as a education knowledge transfer medium, it's a ripoff. That's the way I see it. But on the other hand, the life that you lead, you kind of just came out of the house, and frankly, most people going in are boys, and they've been pampered, and there's failure to launch. They haven't launched. I was the same, right? I go in, I didn't even know what I was doing. I didn't know life skills, and it started teaching me those life skills. And at the same time, I was, attending some of the lessons and learning a bit. In most cases, this is the
And you
way,
were
right?
parsing a lot as well.
Yeah, exactly. That's why I went anyway. But what I'm trying to say is that most of the people at the age of 18, they are not ready to work, right? And they need to learn a few life lessons over those 3 years. They learn a few, right? Some people, they are, like, I have my neighbor, and their child is he didn't go to university, and frankly, I think he did the right thing. He's very mature in his thought processes. He knows exactly what he wants to do, very kind of career minded, and he went and is doing an apprenticeship with to be an electrician and then do further those things. And I think right on, because he's not going to get into debt, and he's earning life skills, but he has a level of maturity. So when we are comparing university and what is taught there, and the boot camp, we also have to take age into account and the person's maturity into account. If someone who's had a few bumps on the road already, you know and who then understands life, understands people, understands a few of the other things that Jose, you were talking about, for them I would say, yeah, go ahead, do the skills training, because all you need is that, and the rest you have, the kind of be working in with people, you have that. So then it's just a skill. And I would say go for a boot camp. There is no competition against a university. Boot camp would win in this scenario.
Yeah.
So can I just share, like Mesh, you asked me to share like that comparison, as Mesh was saying, in the early days of Codurance, in our first year, end of our first year, we hired 2 people, as Mesh was saying. So they were all our apprentices. So both of them came to Codurance as an apprentice. So the guy that was changing careers and went through a boot camp became Mesh's apprentice, and the guy that went through quite one of the top universities in the UK became my apprentice. And they started the job at Codurance exactly the same day, right? So before, we did not have a formal apprenticeship program. They were just like working side by side with us and mentored us in whatever we were doing at that time. So looking at, like, we liked both of them. We I think that we were really lucky to have both of them. It's a shame that at some point, of course, it was their first job. At some point, they looked for other things, other experiences. But looking at them, they stayed with us for at least a couple of years, maybe one of them a bit longer, and they were very different. But for example, the one that came through the boot camp, he was more mature. He was already in the late 20s, if I'm not wrong. And he had worked in other businesses and in small businesses. So he was used to understand the financial pressures of working in a small business. I think it was coming from a charity. I don't remember exactly what it was. But he was used to that pressure of delivering something, or of understanding money, like you need to do business so money come in so that he can get paid and stuff. So his dealings with other team members, and even with the clients really liked him because he was a far more mature guy, right? But he struggled far more because, like, we are a consultancy. We tend to go to places where, well, it's complex places, right? So they need to work with. There is a lot of stuff. It's not only a piece of code. They have large systems and integrations and all sorts of stuff. So, for example, on the hard skills, he struggled much more. So, for example, the other guy was almost the opposite. So on the hard skills, hardcore programming, talking about memory management or lists and maps and all this kind of stuff, and getting familiar with frameworks and very quickly understand complexity, he was much faster. But he was also much younger. So, for example, he would get frustrated a little bit faster. So all this kind of stuff. So dealing with other, although he was a great guy, by the way, it was a real shame that he left. But again, you could see that those life skills that you were saying was that it was almost like One would take longer to understand technical issues, but would deal more better because of his maturity as a person. The other one learned far faster, but again, it was more immature.
There's also a matter of attitude as well. Yeah? Like you can still, you can get people with the wrong attitude, and doesn't matter what kind of training they went through before that. They don't have the right attitude to, especially in an industry like ours that's constantly changing. You constantly need to be learning, adapting, and so on. If you don't have that in you, you're gonna have a hard time either way, right?
It's very true, and we had one or two of that as well.
Yeah.
We over years we've hired a few people, and this person was didn't thrive, let's say, at Codurance, and they had quite a bit of they'd come out of a boot camp and had a bit of experience as well. But yeah, it's the attitude matters a lot, but also there is an idea of familiarity, because one thing that I'm noticing more and more teaching my younger son software development is that it's not an easy thing to jump into. It is a kind of a paradigm shift, and you think differently, and it's very hard to get into. And I think people that come in unprepared into boot camps. I know one of our boot camps who are actually very close to us, North Coders. Uh, they're actually very. They do an exam before you enter, so there's an entry exam, because you do need a level of preparation before you get in. So it's how much familiarity that you've had with coding, because you do need that familiarity. It's like it's very close to learning a language, because I'm trying to learn Spanish and I'm trying to teach uh, um, a, 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 it's C# to my son, right? And he has the same kind of issues that I have with learning Spanish, because of the fluency for understanding, being like having that vocabulary and constructs in your head and ready for recall immediately, right? And kind of the paradigm of the language, just like he has. And I find him struggling and stumbling over it over and over again, just like I stumble with learning a language. So what I'm saying is that if you want to go towards a boot camp, if you just go in not knowing much about programming at all and think, okay, the boot camp 3 months and I'm going to get a programming job, you're doing yourself a big disfavor. And even if you do manage to get a job, you're going to struggle for quite a while. So actually coming in with a good level of preparation and familiarity, akin to doing Duolingo for a year or so before you start taking
Before you
off on that
actually went
route.
into.
Do the same thing, and then go in and kind of almost immersion when you prepared. That I think will bring you out in at a much better level.
You reminded me well, there's a couple of things that you mentioned that I would like to get to, but you reminded me of Michael Mueller. You remember the
Yeah.
financial guy?
Yeah.
So Michael, among the many things that he did, he had an online magazine. Well, not an online. It started as a just a magazine like called Mini Guide for things to do in Barcelona, that kind of thing. And they would print the thing, and then at some point he said, "Okay, I want to transition the magazine to online. How do I do that?" And then he started teaching himself programming, right, to be able to deal with that. In the end, after he knew kind of then he went and hired someone, and they did the project and all that stuff. And he sometimes would go in and change stuff and so on. Now, at some point, when the whole Bitcoin and cryptocurrency was kind of starting to, of course, his background is in finance, right? So he said, "Okay, I want to get into this," and he went and did a bootcamp on Ethereum.
Right.
Yeah, he learned how to code for smart contracts, etc., etc., etc. And right after that, he went and got a job at a crypto based company. He's still doing that, and he's doing very well. He's actually being promoted a few times already. But because he brings on top of his knowledge, technical knowledge, which I would say it's good, but it's not like someone who been doing that for years, no? Because also this technology is relatively new, so to speak, no? He brings on other things like his financial knowledge, like his, people skills, management, etc., and that has allowed him to progress a lot faster than anyone who just, apples for apples, no, went also to the bootcamp but didn't have all of these things in there. So I think what you're saying is complete, is entire. That's the best scenario, I would say, right? Like you have a baggage or a set of things that you already know that are transferable skills. You also have done your work, yeah, of trying to learn on your own, yeah. And then once you realize, okay, so this is, you went through the basics and know that you need some guide, then you go and you do the thing and you accelerate that learning, no, and continue on your own later on. That will be the ideal scenario for me in this case.
Yeah.
The other thing that sorry.
No, no, sorry. Finish, Jose. I thought you were done.
No, I was going to jump to another topic, but I can defer that to.
No, no, go. I'll take notes. I'll
There's another thing that you mentioned as well from the bootcamp is that, and I think this is transferable. Like if when you look at universities, I don't know, like Harvard or whatever, right? The kind of stuff that they teach at those universities, they could use one method or another, but a lot of that stuff you can find somewhere else, right? Like if you go online, you see lectures of other universities, etc. Like the content itself, there might be some things there, but what the university brings in this case is, from my perspective, is the people that you're going to be doing that with, yeah, whether it's teachers or other people that are going in there, and the selection process that happens before you go into university.
But Jose, this is the same in a bootcamp, right? The one
exactly is what I'm trying to say.
Selection process, and all their work is group-based learning.
This is what I meant. What triggered this reflection is when you said that they do a test before. This bootcamp that you were mentioning, I think North Coders or something like that. No, they do a test before that, and I think that is something that a lot of bootcamps fail to do because they're focusing on basically getting money, right? Like, okay, you come here, we'll teach you, and they're focusing more on the business side of that equation. Yeah, it's questionable. Let's put it like that. The other thing is also business, right? But basically they focus more on the short term, you transactional value that you can create from this, and not the long term kind of value, right? And they precisely don't do a very good selection process, yeah. But that is working against them, because if you don't do a very good selection process, when people graduate and they go to find work, yeah, if you're constantly seeing people coming from X boot camp and they're really good, they have the right attitude, they have yes, they're new, they're not as experienced, but they're they have potential. You pay attention to people coming from there, right? Doesn't matter what the volume is, like you can have more students coming out of a bigger boot camp and not have the same results, right? So I think that is something that if I were to change something in the way that boot camps are approaching things now, I would add that. I don't know if that's fair, in the sense that it's a bit of gatekeeping, no, in a way. No, it's like you
have the same at universities. Why no one talks about that being fair at universities, right?
But it is something that I would change.
Feelings about this one. I need to digest a bit more, because so I think that that's why I said I have mixed feelings, because on one end you say, look, I have a school and I'm willing to teach some skills to whoever wants to come, and of course can afford as well, because it's not a charity, and that gives opportunity to everyone that of course can afford that training, right? So of course they have limitations and stuff, so of number of people and so on. So in one hand, I like that a lot. So your job is, look, I'll give you some skills to people, similar to a school. All the students will go through school. Some of them will do very well after with that knowledge and acquiring that knowledge and applying that knowledge in the future. Others not so much, but the opportunity was given to those people. Of course, there are other schools. So, for example, I have experience of public and private schools, and some schools is way beyond than that. So it's not only like teaching some skills, but they want to be known as the best school, the best university, the best private school, and so on. And they are measured by the how good the students graduate, right? And how, for example, in a private school here, they say like we have this percentage of students that were able to pass in Cambridge or Oxford or some of the top universities in the UK. So that's part of their criteria. That's how it is. So the boot camps can also take that. If they take that, they become a bit more selective. But I think that there is a space for all of them. So for example, we don't need to have just one type of bootcamp because there are. This is the thing, right? So a way to flip that around is what kind of work those people that go through a bootcamp expect to get after graduating. So what is the kind of return that they want for their investment? Yeah, and also for future employers, also for them to consider to hire someone from a bootcamp. As I said, we considered that in the past, and then we gave up on that idea, sort of. So maybe with very few exceptions, but we don't target bootcamps, let's put it this way. The same way that we do, as Matt said, we don't target recent grads. However, we also don't care how people learned what they learn. So when they come to our selection process, we will apply a criteria as an employer. But if they learn those skills, being hard skills, soft skills, we don't really care how they acquired that knowledge. Every company will have a selection process and say, look, as long as they meet these criteria for hard and soft skills, if they are learned that through formal education or from a series of training courses or from a bootcamp, or just learned by the job, is almost irrelevant.
I think, Sandro, as you said, there's room for everyone, for all sorts of boot camps. But I would say that at the moment, most boot camps are at the bottom of that ladder, in the sense, they're trying to make money, and it's fine, and they'll bring almost everyone in, and even and the other thing is that there's no real grading process, and there's not the university grading process are that standard, but universities have some kind of. So if you have a person with a first-class degree in computer science, you expect a certain level of intelligence. They might not even know how to program well or write clean code, but this capacity to learn and apply yourself, you expect a certain level. And this, I think, I'm unaware, maybe some boot camps do, but they definitely don't do it. So I think very few boot camps have a good selection criteria and are very strict on who comes in. And then there's probably nobody that actually does a grading. But there is a thing in the middle as well, is that almost every boot camp that I've seen, they are group learning places. Yeah. And you learn probably arguably more from your group than you learn from your teacher. Right. So if you have a very good standard of people coming into a cohort for a boot camp, and they are all good standards, they will teach each other a lot more, and consequently you will get a much better outcome for most of them coming out as well. Like it's like often there is a saying that training is taught at the speed of the slowest learner in the group, right? Often. Right. So there is that dynamic as well, that if you raise the bar in entry criteria, you raise the bar of that cohort collectively, and this is just a hypothesis, but you'll probably get better results.
So there is I just wanted to, one thing that I want to say, like Jose, when you were going to your second point, Today we had an event at Codurance here in London, and a woman came to our event, and I spent a good amount of time speaking to her. So I know that she watched these some of the fireside chats as well. So she was telling me her story, and I found fascinating. So I think she's from Russia, but then also lived in Korea for a period of time, and now is in the UK. She's already like she's certainly far younger than I am. But she studied. I don't remember if it was economics with emphasis in business or the other way around, business with emphasis in economics. I don't remember which order that was. But then very recently she developed the interest in working with IT. I don't think she did a boot camp, but she's going through after one training course after another. So she because she had a very analytic mind because of economics and stuff. So she said, look, I like data. And then she started studying data. And then she got into Python. And then she started doing training courses in Python. And then through Python and data, she discovered all the cloud and cloud computing and using the cloud to host the applications to do stuff. So then she got interested in AWS, and she came to our AWS event today in our office. That's how I met her. And then I was saying, so tell me your story. And then she was telling me all of that. And you take someone that is certainly much younger than me, but quite mature. So he's not certainly not an 18-year-old or just a 21-year-old. But when you take someone like her, for example, I think that finding different ways, very short trainings, and using the knowledge that she already has from other industries, she could be a very good asset for a lot of companies. I can see just her telling me the process that she's doing to learn new things and going to those events, going to communities, doing trainings, speaking to people. So, and she said, look, I feel that I'm almost ready now to get my first job in IT. And now she's applying for jobs. She even had an interview after our event and stuff. So I find that like when you talk about university, I come from a university background. I did a computer science, master degree, all that. I agree with everything you said, Mesh. But I have those conversations at home today, like with my kids. Let's say if one of my kids decide to go to do what I do, I would think, so like, do you really want to go to university? Or for example, if you can prepare yourself, if they are really apt to it, right? So if they start developing the I don't know, the passion for writing code and stuff like that, if they can learn that through different means, either through bootcamp, through trainings and stuff, get internships and stuff, and bring them to do an unpaid job for, at the end of the day, as I was saying, I don't really care how they acquired those skills, but if they can show uh, at that moment, so look, I can compensate my lack of knowledge with demonstrable, I don't know, like they can demonstrate how much they are willing to learn and how they've been learning and stuff. As an entry point, again, we are not hiring this person to be a principal consultant to work in the most challenging jobs, but as an entry level, as a team member, to do the initial work that a junior would do, I think that's a great thing.
Yeah.
By the way, Herman, you mentioned you had a thing like from a software craftsmanship. Herman Gonzalez was saying on the chat, like from software craftsmanship perspective, can we think about a bootcamp to enter medicine field and become a doctor? So no, but I think that this is remember that we are talking about entry level. So for example, maybe there is a boot camp for you not to become a heart surgeon, but you could at least, I don't know how to apply an injection or to, like, so
It
you are
was.
starting.
It's funny thing. It made me laugh because I'm originally from Pakistan, and the medical sector is not very well regulated at all, right? And I remember a lot of I mean, even when I was very young, I remember that they were doctors' assistants or even pharmacists that then suddenly became doctors, right? And they were servicing a need in in the community. Everyone called them a doctor, and they could prescribe some medicine, normal medicine, and they had the foresight to say, okay, you need to go to hospital, that kind of thing. And that was pretty good, and they were a doctor, right? No, I'm being funny, but in a way, there is that you could think of those as boot camps, at a pharmacy, and then you go become a doctor, or just a kind of a doctor light, as it is. But oh, by the way, Pakistan has some very good doctors as well. A lot of them come to the UK, so that's a different matter.
You don't want
But
the whole Pakistani community coming to our chat.
exactly. Just saying. But there is another element to this, is that the cost of failure in software development, especially at entry levels and so on, and you're working in team environments, you can be sheltered from making big mistakes, and making small mistakes is not that big a deal. Even big mistakes, we make them all the time. Often, probably part of the Wild West that we're in, often they kind of overlooked. Once or twice a developer gets the thing, but often they're overlooked. But the cost of failure in being a doctor is much higher. So that's why in regulated places, health industry is highly regulated, because the risks are much higher. You make a mistake and you kill somebody and you go to jail. It's not the
Yeah,
case
at
in
some
the
point you need to specialize. Of course, there's no doubt for certain types of jobs you need to specialize. But again, I think that it was not a good comparison, because, like, as I said, I don't expect someone to finish a boot camp and do the work of a principal consultant to advise investment banks of what to do. So that's is a big gap, right? So,
exactly.
um, there are things. For example, are there alternatives to boot camps, both from a person that wants to join our industry, but also for employers that would like to bring, I wouldn't say young necessarily, but inexperienced talent, people with a lot of potential that are joining our industry now? Are there alternatives? So, Jose, I don't know, just a question maybe.
Shameless plug. Shameless plug
It's
time.
almost,
Uh,
was this scripted, that I don't know that it was scripted?
exactly.
No, let's talk from a people perspective, maybe.
No. I mean,
Uh,
listen. I like a lot. I think e-learning is a very good option, right? Like right now, you pay a Udemy subscription or whatever, and you get access to a ton of content. Some is good, some is bad. No, but there are very good trainings and courses there that if you apply yourself, you can get good really really fast and very up to date as well. Yeah, and that's all or mostly all on your own. Yeah, so for the hard skills, a lot of that you can do on your own through e-learning and books and this kind of thing. Yeah, even YouTube, the very good channels that talk about a lot of stuff. Even practices XP, like all those things. Now you're not going to be able to get that. What you're not going to be able to get there is the teamwork and actual experience of working on a project, because a lot of the times the complexity of the projects that, for instance, we work in is different than a to-do list or a movie site or whatever example toy project that you can put together, right? So that you need to get somewhere else. Yeah, and I feel like the ideal alternative, this is what we try to do with some of the programs that we are doing with clients and things that we're stay tuned, because we will be releasing some stuff in the near future. Yeah, is precisely trying to combine that theoretical and kind of expert feedback that you get, for instance, with technical coaching, with the hands-on approach of working in an actual project. right, in your context. Because this is one of the things that happens when you do a training, even as an organization trying to get people to the level or whatever. Like I can give you 2 days of training and you can learn the vocabulary and more or less get an idea of how to do TDD,
Get some
or
awareness.
fist bumps,
You are
or
aware of what
whatever.
is possible.
But then when I drop you in the context where you were before, this application that is usually legacy, maybe has no test, maybe has not a very good design, whatever, then it's the gap for you to be able to use those skills in that context is so big that it will take a lot of effort individually for you to be able to do it right, and probably a lot of time as well. So bridging those two, yeah, having that theory plus feedback plus application into a real thing, I think is would be the ideal uh, outcome for that. Yeah, of course, if you're an employer, you can also have, like we do, PLPs or personal learning plans, where people have, these are the gaps that I have, these are the things that I need to look at, and then you create specific training modules for them to go through as they're working as part of their induction process, let's put it like that, no, in order for them to bridge that gap. Yeah, I think those are two good options. Now, if you're an employer trying to find a boot camp that does that good selection, but also that mixes both the theory and the practice with your actual context, is one thing. The other one would be having development paths for people in general. Yeah. And of course, the e-learning thing, I think, it supplements everything, right? And it also helps scale, yeah, as well, which is quite interesting. Now, the only thing that and this is something that Perry also mentioned, I think he mentioned it to me at some point, is um, the mentoring slash coaching aspect of things. I feel like that there's still not a very good solution for it, other than technical coaching or things like this, which is kind of we're going with that. But I think with ChatGPT, and I show you, I think, some of the examples that I did, right, you can actually get a lot of that with AI, yeah, with large language models that are able to code, etc. And you can basically have a coach with you, kind of complementing those things. I think that is not far off. I mean, the results right now are actually really good. Um, in a year or two, they'll probably be even better, right? And I'm talking about design. I'm talking about all the other things that are not that easy to learn just on your own, right? Like reading a book or doing an exercise, because part of that is having the feedback. No, it's like, if you do the exercise and you don't know it's wrong, then you're not learning either, right? So I think this aspect of having something to complement is essential to that as well. Yeah, and in this case, ChatGPT is a good option for now. I mean, it's close to being a good option, I would say. Sorry, I gave a lot of a big spiel there, but
And for you, Max, like, are there alternatives for boot camps, both from people and employers?
So, alternative to boot camps and universities, I'm guessing, right?
Or let's say, no, I'll rephrase. So alternatives for people to break into our industry. Let's say we already covered the boot camps and universities. So
Mhm.
people to get into our industry, but also for employers to get people at the entry level, let's say.
So there's a bunch of things. I don't know how many alternatives exist, and I don't know why we don't do it. Like, for example, Rolls-Royce has apprenticeships which start from the age of 16, and they're usually about, I think, at least 5 years long, right? Uh, I don't know how they justify that, uh, and how much they pay people, but I think not a lot, right? So from 16 to 21, they are expected to earn very little and learn a lot. And so that I don't, I am unaware of any companies, small companies, often that's because it's a very long term investment. But I don't know, I'm not aware of big companies, but I'm sure there are that offer that level of um, that level of training. Although once you're trained as a Rolls Royce engineer, there's not many other places you can work other than Rolls Royce. So it's like a, of course, there's a lot of investment, but there's also a very long term return. Whereas there's in the UK, in tech industries, 2 years max. It seems like at the moment tenure, but it is an alternative. Uh, the other alternatives that I see are what we do. As Jose was saying as well, we have our own apprenticeship scheme, and we take people from a certain level. I think even companies like us, where it is frankly not easy to get the right kind of attitude, behavior, kind of acumen, let's say as well, and even looking at earlier on at people who are college leavers, right? Because in the UK, up to college is free, yeah, education, and college leavers, looking at them and taking them from that level is also a very interesting thing. And in fact, I know that a lot of companies do that now. There are these very sought after scholarship apprentices in the UK, but they are over subscribed, highly oversubscribed. And the, like, if you seek a scholarship apprenticeship at the college, because my son is there at the moment, the competition is so big and only the cream get it. Because what you get there, a scholarship apprenticeship, what you get there is, after I think it's 3 years, I'm not sure exactly, you get paid to do the job, not necessarily at the same level as like the market rate, but you do get a good level of pay, and you get a degree at the end of it as well. So it's a thing that you can hold in your hand, and you can, so it's well recognized, it's at a particular level and so on. And you basically been working, I think it's 2 days of learning, 3 days of working, or something like this, but it's a lot of hard work. But they are very sought after. And for companies like us to actually think about those kind of things as viable alternatives for finding good people, but even for people who want a third alternative, not university, not just jump straight into a boot camp, but actually look at these things, I think it's also a good alternative.
You touch on a point there. Sorry, Sandro, I'm not sure if you wanted to jump in now, but you touched on a point there, which was they have something to hold on to, and it's well regarded, and so on. And how do you see that kind of certification, kind of, because this is kind of like underlying an underlying theme in a lot of the stuff that we've discussed, right? Like, you before, you were saying, if you go to university, you get a computer science degree, you expect certain level of whatever, right? Like, because they went to, no, there's that inherent expectation, no, of minimum level, no, the people that go through that go. And to some extent, that's what certifications are
Yeah, but
going
they
for,
they
no?
they are not, that's the problem with certification. They're not well regulated, and you can buy them. They're pretty much, you can buy them, and most often than not, there are certifications that you attended something, not, or that you achieved some certain assessment. That's the problem with a lot of the certifications. You do some which are where you do have to sit exams. They are CBT, computer based exams that ask you multiple choice questions and you answer them. um, yeah, well, you think, well, exams, university exams are the same, right? But they are marked by individuals. They're not multiple choice, and they're not tactical. There is a lot of strategic element to those assessments, and I'm not aware of a more sophisticated method of assessment in the private sector for certification as there exists for degrees.
No, but for instance, someone in the chat is, how about OCP Java, right? Like, there are certain certifications that
OCP, sorry, was OCP?
is that
Oracle Certified
Oracle
Professional.
yeah.
certified.
Oh,
Yeah.
so Sandro
Oracle
can tell you all
certified
about them. He has
professional.
all the, at the time there were some
He
certifications, and
collects them. He collects
I
them
have,
like I
I
used to
have
collect
some
the
one or two
Microsoft one.
that I am embarrassed to admit about as well.
So
But
I actually recently, I think I removed from my LinkedIn profile, but I had 5 of them, and I had quite a high score in all of them. But but then because they are
But
like almost like 15, 20 years old, I saw no, remove that.
no,
But
but my point was, you know, there are certain certifications, even for instance in security, right? Like where they would ask you already for, I don't know, 2 years of experience doing X type of work, and then on top of that completing certain thing, and then on top of that doing some assessments, right? Um, so to some extent, there are the easy ones, no, where you just pay and maybe get some exams and just do exams until you memorize everything that can come up and pass, right? And there are others that try to, again, do a good job at filtering out who has the knowledge or doesn't have the knowledge to a certain extent.
but even frankly, I mean, even look at OCP Java. The certification itself is would actually treat a certification. I always used to tell my apprentices as well that do certifications to learn, not for the certification itself, but what it teaches you. Like it covers a wider variety, right? But having said that, um, just me saying we don't look at certifications at all, and I don't even read that part where someone says certifications under the CV. And I know the kind of companies that do read it and do make it a prerequisite, and they are not very good, those
right, so
companies.
let me tell you a quick story about that. Right, so the thing about like why I had 5 Java certifications, yeah, and I took them all before coming to the UK. So I'll tell you why I went for that and what I was expecting to happen. So when I decided to move from Brazil to the UK, I knew that I worked mostly with with Delphi. Delphi was non-existing in the UK. The UK market at that time, 2004, was Java. Yeah. So I could not have anything in my CV. So I changed jobs. I worked with Java for a year in Brazil. I even took a pay cut just to learn Java. But I was coming from a country that it doesn't like, first of all, the university that I went to is far from being the best in Brazil. So if it's not even the best in Brazil, imagine my university compared to Oxford and Cambridge and Imperial and so on. So on a university criteria, I had zero chances. Yeah. So I even didn't. So, but then why did I go for the certifications? So because I needed to learn Java. I needed to be proficient in Java. So I was coding every single night, doing equivalent to katas. I had loads of different pet projects. But the certifications, what they gave me, the Java certifications, they gave me a structured way of learning. I knew what I had to learn, and I had to apply into pet projects. So I understood very well the difference. And I scored, I think out of 5 certifications, I don't have any one that I scored less than 95%. I did extremely well. I had probably one of the highest ranking Brazilian certifications. So but were they important as a title? No. However, when I arrived in the UK and I did interviews, because I was looking for kind of more entry level and a junior kind of site, I would destroy any interview. So if the interviewer came in asking questions about Java, I would give them a lecture. See what I'm saying?
That
So,
hasn't changed then.
but the thing was, the certifications, the value was not the title of having the certification,
Yeah.
but provides me a very structured way of learning and having a test
Yeah.
and being able to understand that technology to a very wide degree, if you like.
Yeah, we
Yeah, totally.
again, that's why I was mentioning it as well, because for instance, we do with people that come out of the academy, we usually say, hey, if you don't know what to do next, do the AWS practitioner thing, so that you, because it will get you focused, no, on learning something, right, on cloud or whatever, to complement some of the knowledge that you have. So yeah, you can definitely use them as a learning path, kind,
Yeah, yeah,
almost, no. And I think there's a lot of benefit in that. Now, if you're doing it to hold the paper,
yeah.
as you said before, at least we
Yeah, so
don't give it a
no
lot of.
company, yeah, no company cared about the paper, but they were hiring. For example, I was applying for Java roles, and people were asking me because they knew that it was an entry level job. They would ask me things about the technology that I would work with, and I could demonstrate a lot of knowledge, and also did well in the some of the companies. Pair programming back in the 2004 when I arrived was not that common. Uh, but any coding exercise that I had, I did reasonably well, enough to get the jobs. But this is the thing. So for example, we as a company, we Codurance, we don't use certifications or degrees as criteria for any of our interview, and we are not special about that. There is a lot of companies out there, at least in the UK, that are quite mature, that they have some jobs to be done, and they will see if people have the skills to perform the job at a certain level. But how they acquire that knowledge, for most modern companies, is almost irrelevant.
Yes, sir. Exactly. There is another, actually, the question, Sandra, you asked about alternative ways of learning. The other thing, and I think regardless of what level you're in, entry or senior or whatever, is community. You
Mhm.
know, being part of a regular part of communities. Maybe spend 1 to 2 days a week or evening, set those aside to go and attend a community of your choice in software development, whichever programming language, whichever architecture, whichever cloud technology. And those will teach you more than anything else. I think I was saying this to you, Sandro, that like the single biggest multiplier in my knowledge and skill was the London software craftsmanship community.
Same for me. So coming from the Java community, and then the craftsmanship community took everything I know to the next level. And this woman that I mentioned today, she said exactly that today to me. She said, "Look, I've been coming to the London Software Craftsmanship community. She's going to be the next event for the CAT and stuff. So she attended some events. So she said, look, just coming to the communities, it's opening up a whole new world to me because I meet people. So during the events, I learn stuff, and then I meet those people attending the events, and they have their own experience." And she was saying like, so that's why she went from data to Python to AWS and now to other things. And so she said, and then she was talking about machine learning and AI and stuff. And she said like, this is just me going to places and talking to people, and then arriving home and trying to practice those stuff and trying to learn. You know?
Yeah, and I would say not only attending is like a first step, but if you really want to get into it, start contributing, because one of the things that helps you the most is when you have to explain things to others. The action of learning it and preparing it to be able to explain it is a very strong way of learning and absorbing that knowledge. And I remember that, like, when, for instance, when you're doing, I don't know, preparing a kata, right? Like you're going to do a prepared kata, or you're going to do a facilitated coding dojo, but you still need to do the exercise yourself, and then you're doing it yourself. But then it's not just doing it like someone who will attend is doing it, right? You're doing it to see what else you can get out of that, and what topics or what conversations can come out of that, and what are your thoughts as you're doing it as well. So it serves a higher uh, purpose, no, of analyzing at the same time that you are kind of going through the practice itself, right? So it's very positive, very strong. Okay, so I think we're at the 10-minute mark, which is almost
An hour and 10 is the new hour.
exactly,
Right?
is the new hour, exactly, right. Any last thoughts before we close?
I'll try to be brief. So yeah, I think the bootcamps overall are a good thing. So they help people to get into our industry. We need more people in our industry. Yes, some of them could do a better job. I think that there is room to have bootcamps at different levels because the employers are also at different levels. The kind of software engineering skills that you need to have in a very complex environment, like a very large investment banking, telecom, healthcare and stuff, or for consultancies where you are selling that service. So the client paying expect a good service at software engineering. Of course, at the bar to get those jobs are higher. So maybe there are different bootcamps that could evolve to cater for the needs of some more highly specialized companies. However, there are many other companies that they have much simpler businesses, much smaller businesses, where they just need a few people. They already have a small core that do well, and they just need maybe a few entry level people to start learning. They have the time, the right environment, the simpler systems. So you can have boot camps targeting different types of employers. The return on investment tend to be quite good, at least as an entry point. Companies, I think that they have alternatives. They can hire from boot camps, they can hire from universities, but they can also establish their own uh, kind of internal, like we have our internal academy, and I know that other companies are trying to do the same, either doing themselves or hiring companies like ours to help them to build their academies. But then you build an academy for the needs of that company. So your own internal academy needs to be according to what you expect those people to do after they graduate, and what you teach and how you teach needs to be aligned to that. So that's kind of my summary.
Very good summary, Sandro. I don't know what else to add. It summarized everything very well and what we discussed. Yeah. So the answer: how useful are tech bootcamps? Bootcamps very useful is the answer, given everything else. Um, and I'll use my time to, we were talking about communities. As Codurance, we have software craftsmanship communities alongside every office, and sometimes even more places. So search for software craftsmanship communities in the UK. We have London, of course, Leeds, and Manchester, and other places as well. And of course, we have communities in Barcelona, Madrid, Malaga. So yeah,
And
head over to
Lisbon as
your
well.
pardon.
And Lisbon as well.
And Lisbon, yeah, exactly. So head over to your closest software craftsmanship community. You'll learn a great deal. And important thing, as Jose was saying, go there, attend regularly, meet, make friends, and contribute, and then you will learn a lot.
Cool. Um, yeah, I guess you guys cover a lot of a lot of the stuff. So I'll yield my time. No. And if you like what you heard today, if you like the conversation and so on, hit the notification button and subscribe, and you'll know when we go online. Usually it's Tuesdays around the same time. Always a new topic. If there's a topic that you want us to discuss, please go ahead. Tell us about it. Twitter, the chat, whatever. Right. We're more than happy to discuss these things. It also helps us to open our eyes and widen our horizon. Like when we did the AI thing and so on. So yeah, be part of the conversation, and hopefully you'll see you here next time.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.